my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am finally telling you about my 5-star reads of 2024. I know some may say this video is very late. I don't personally feel that way. I don't have like a time deadline for myself for when I need to post all of those like end of the year, best of the previous year, things looking forward to in the next year videos. That's not something I do to myself. Like, I'm actually very good at posting my anticipated releases for each half of the year on time, like as that half of the year is starting. And other than that, I don't make myself do anything at New Year's. I just don't see the purpose of making myself do a bunch of videos at a time of year when I am A, normally traveling, and B, usually feeling pretty unmotivated. So no, this isn't late. This is right on time because this is my channel and I say it is. That said, 2024 was a dire year for 5-star reads. It was not good. It wasn't quite as dire as 2023 though. If you'll recall, looking back on 2023, I had exactly 4 5-star reads that year, and 2 of them were rereads, so I knew they were going to be 5 stars. Only 2 new to me 5-star reads in 2023. That was the worst. This year, in a little bit of a rebound, I also had 4 5-star reads, but they were all new to me. So 4 new to me 5-star favorites, huzzah! But last year I decided to include, I think, just 1 honorable mention, maybe more, I'm remembering 1. And this year I've decided to include 2 honorable mentions in this video as well. And most of the books in this video I have already talked about in greater detail somewhere else, but for the, I think, 2 of them that I haven't officially wrapped up or reviewed anywhere, I'll be going into a little more detail about those. My first 3 5-star reads of 2024 happened in February, and the first of these was A Warning About Swans by R.M. Romero. This is a YA historical fantasy verse novel, and I have a full review of this on my channel. I posted it a couple videos ago in a double book review with The Raven and the Reindeer by T. Kingfisher, which I read right at the end of the year. So that's a video meant for the fairy tale folks out there. This is about a magical shape-shifting swan maiden who lives in the woods with her sisters until she decides to make her way into the human world and what happens to her there. This is a book that I went into with no expectations except for, ooh, pretty cover, ooh, this sounds like my type of book from the book description. And I was so pleased that I impulsively picked this up. My second and third 5-star reads from February of 2024 were Divinity 36 and Demigod 12, both by Gail Carriger. These are the first and second books in the Tinkered Starsong trilogy, which are indie-published sci-fi. And you'll notice pointedly that the third book is not on this list. The third book, I still enjoyed it, but found that I, for various reasons, couldn't justify giving it 5 stars. Both of these, though, just hit like a happy spot in my brain, and I continue to think about this series over a year later. I continue to be mad that it was only 3 books and then it finished. I have a video on my channel from June where I did full series reviews of 3 separate series, and this was one of them. I will link all of the videos I mention in this video. But the premise of this series is that it's about a reclusive teenage refugee who is working as a barista on a sort of backwater moon when he gets sort of forcibly scouted to become a god in this K-pop inspired alien religion because he has a remarkable singing voice. And then my 4th 5-star read, my 4th and final 5-star read of 2024 happened in March, the month after, and then like that was it for the rest of the year. No more 5-star reads. Isn't that depressing? But my 5-star read from March is one that I don't own a physical copy of. I got this one from the library, and it is Seasparrow by Kristin Cashore. This is also one of the ones that I haven't reviewed or wrapped up anywhere else in detail, so I'm going to do that a bit here. This is the 5th book in the Graceling Realm series. The original 3 books were published in 2008, 2009, and 2012, and then the author has returned to this world for 2 more books, Winterkeep in 2021 and Seasparrow in 2022. And I haven't been buying these books because when I initially read the original Graceling Realm books back in the day, I liked them, but I was getting most of my books from the library, especially YA. I still get most of my YA books from the library because most of them don't end up being books I want to own long term. And I really liked those original 3 books back in the day, but I was nowhere near as like deeply obsessed with them as I have been with these 2 follow-up novels. And I really hope she decides to write more of them. This one, however, does feel tonally very different from Winterkeep. Winterkeep kind of broke the mold of the series in terms of focusing on multiple protagonists, multiple POV characters, whereas each of the first 3 books had one clear protagonist. This one, however, kind of does the total opposite, and it focuses really, really tightly on its protagonist, Hava, and it is a character study more than it is anything else. It's told in first person, which I think none of the other books in the series are. I didn't remember much about Hava from Bitter Blue when I read Winterkeep, but this book gives you everything you could possibly want to know about this character. I love her so much. She is Bitter Blue's secret half-sister, and she is, I think, actually older than the other like teenage protagonists of the series. The series is YA, and each book has had a teenage protagonist, but I think she might be like 20 in this. I don't remember exactly how old, but it struck me that she's not actually strictly a teenager. However, I think this book still works as YA because she's sort of at a point in her life where she's having some of those big feelings about, you know, coming of age and figuring out who she is and what she wants to do with herself. That's such a central theme in so much YA. And for her, it's just happening a little bit later numerically in terms of years. We start this book with everyone on a ship heading back to Monsea after the events of Winterkeep, which had this cast of characters traveling abroad. And so a lot of like the first half of this book takes place on a boat, but then there is like a shipwreck survival arc that happens, and then some more politics that happen back home. But while the stakes are very high during the portion of this where it's like a survival story, it's not the sort of like action high stakes that you get in a lot of political intrigue YA fantasy. It's more inwardly focused on like what are we all doing to put one foot in front of the next. There is a bit of a romance in this that I thought was very, very sweet. There are magic blue foxes as there were in Winterkeep, and in this one there are even baby magic blue foxes. I did find their survival to be like moderately implausible given what I know about the fragility of baby animals and like the circumstances that were going on. But I don't think I can fault the author for keeping some medically fragile foxes alive. And then I've picked my 2 honorable mentions for a couple different reasons. So these are books that when I look back on the rest of 2024, after that incredible beginning of the year that I had, really stand out to me in retrospect as worthy of inclusion in a best of the year list for one reason or another. The first of those is The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekera. This is on this list because it ended up being my #1 pick of the nominees for the Best Novel Hugo last year. I have a wrap-up where I talked about my reading of the Best Novel nominees and how I ended up personally ranking them, and that is where I discussed this book in greater detail. In that video, I talked about how those Best Novel nominees, the ones that I read, were basically a lot of 4-star reads for me, and so it was very hard to figure out how I was going to rank them, but this is the one that came out on top. I think this is the best quote-unquote highbrow SFF novel that I read last year. This is the one that I recommend to people who want to know, like, where is the genre right now, what is new, what is exciting, what is cutting edge. And that's why it was my #1 pick of the Hugo Award field last year. It didn't win Some Desperate Glory one. I was also happy about that. This is a contemporary feeling fantasy with South Asian influences and just like some extremely vivid weirdness that really appealed to me. It's set mostly in and around a city that is undergoing a year of political unrest. And this is a book that like shakes your expectations around several times before you get to the end. And then my second honorable mention makes this list for really different reasons, and that's To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquill Blackgoose. I read this book in September after it had already won the Lodestar Award, which made me mad then, and it still makes me mad now, even though I really loved the book, because the Lodestar is an award for YA fiction, and this book is adult. This is the second time that the Lodestar Award has gone to a book published as an adult title, and this award is broken, clearly, because Hugo voters who nominate and vote for the Lodestar clearly don't know what YA is, and there's no guardrail in place to keep that ignorance from making its way onto the short list and ultimately to prevent what we've seen happen for 2 years now. I am really glad, though, that I didn't let my anger about that particular thing that has nothing to do with the quality of this book, I'm glad I didn't let that prevent me from reading it. The reason that To Shape a Dragon's Breath is one of my honorable mentions is because it's the book that come the end of the year when I was like doing my Christmas shopping, I felt like I could confidently recommend to the broadest range of individual people that I think I know the reading tastes of, that I was trying to find books for. This is genuinely a book I would recommend to so many people. I think this book has YA crossover appeal. Definitely, I think there are a lot of YA readers who would really like this. And there are teenagers I would recommend it to. This is the other book on this list that I haven't done a review or wrap-up for, so again, I'm gonna go into a little more detail about this. This is an alternate history, although it kind of doesn't feel like it because it is so alternate. The way you know it is alternate history is because there's a map in the front, and the map is our world. It feels a lot like one of those secondary world fantasies where you can tell that each continent and each country is kind of analogous to one in our own world. But I think reading it, you wouldn't know that it's actually alternate history unless you saw the map. But regardless, this is alternate 19th century North America in a world where European history is clearly kind of different, and so the colonization of the Americas happened kind of differently, and also there are dragons. And the dragons can kind of do magic, except the magic is all based in chemistry. It's all got a little bit of a steampunk vibe, but it's not heavy on the steampunk. It's just a little bit of steampunk. Our protagonist, Anakus, is an indigenous girl from what I believe is alternate history Nantucket, if I was reading the map right, which in this world is a place that's been left to the indigenous population. The colonizers have dragons at their disposal, whereas the indigenous species of dragon hasn't been seen in this area for generations. That is until Anakus sees one of these dragons flying out towards the ocean, leaving an egg behind, and this egg hatches in her village, and the resulting baby dragon chooses Anakus as her bonded human. This causes trouble, however, because the colonizing government has a lot of laws and also customs about who is allowed to be bonded to a dragon, and in order to keep her dragon, Anakus has to enroll in a fancy dragon riding academy that's mostly attended by like very upper class white students, mostly boys. And I think this book handles those intersecting questions of race, class, and gender in interesting ways. I think the supporting cast are really interesting and really well fleshed out, including the characters who are sometimes pretty unlikable. Anakus is also bisexual and has 2 potential love interests, one female, one male, neither of whom represent the oppressor in the story. And it's pretty clear that she would like this to end in polyamory, but where we are at the end of book 1 is she doesn't know if she'd be able to get the other 2 parties on board with that. I think one of the things that makes this book so highly recommendable to me is that it absolutely is dealing in some very serious themes, but the book overall never really goes too dark. There is always the possibility that the series could go dark in the future, and I think I would be fine with that. But the tone of this book stays really entertaining and readable, even when there is the constant threat that everything could go badly sideways. It's mostly a sort of school-centered magic school book where mostly things don't. The series title for this series is Nampeshawayaset. Goodreads has recently added book 2. I'm not sure when that information happened or where it's coming from. I assume it's coming from the publisher. But apparently book 2 is going to be called To Ride a Rising Storm, and Goodreads has it listed for October 14th of this year. Very excited, can't wait. So those were my 5-star reads and standout honorable mentions of 2024. Let me know if you had a good reading year in terms of 5-star reads or whatever measure you use. Was 2024 a good reading year for you? It was decent for me. Anyhow, I hope you're having a very nice day. That is all. Bye for now.